about consumers. In this case, this is a picture of another Google product, Google Earth, and our ability to look at this. In this case, carbon and all kinds of 3D, quite exciting. The other thing that we have to start considering as marketers is really thinking about touch. So we're living in a world changing rapidly, and consumers today are growing up in a world where they will only know touch. Many of us in this room grew up always watching passive experiences. But today's children, and many of you today, and I know there's students here, are living in a world of complete touch. I have a 1.5-year-old and also an 18-year-old, and the delta between them is quite big. My 1.5-year-old absolutely understands how to operate an iPhone, an iPad, and anything else that she ever looks at. In fact, if it doesn't have touch in it, she gets frustrated. She's used to sliding things across, touching things. It's really quite interesting. So we have to think about what does that mean for marketing? What are the ways that we can use touch we've never had to use before? How does that influence the way we think about the content that we create, the experiences that we want to give consumers about our brands and how they want to interact? We need to think about apps, not ads. I think you've heard quite a bit about that. How many of you know about this application called Titter Squad? Just one. So this is quite an interesting one. This is a Procter & Gamble licensed this almost at the beginning of the iPhone. And what it does is it identifies for you restrooms anywhere in the world. And it's all consumer generated. So all consumers do is they identify a restroom that they found, and they rate it, whether it's clean, you can sit or squat, whether it's for children, children-friendly, whether it's open or closed. There are hundreds of thousands of consumer reviews. And the important part about this is that it's an application that P&G did not build, but have licensed and promoted, and it is contextual. It fits perfectly with their brand. It provides utility to the consumer. Very, very, very nice fit. So we have to think about providing utility just a example of it. This is another of my favorite applications called SkyGrid, and it's just an example of how we can think about using the application of technologies. SkyGrid is a news reader, if you would. It goes and searches the web for the fastest moving content, the fastest trending content possible. And in this case, I just pulled this last night. The European travel alert that's going on immediately comes up. In this case, it's all featured, Tiger stumbled the rider, etc., etc. These are the most current. And if you click on any of them, you can see the article. You can click again and actually go deeper. It has another level in terms of what's featured. The Ryder Cup, obviously, doing very well. There's some people in the room here. And all sorts of other latest information. We also have categories, and they keep on expanding them more and more. So you can set categories, but you can also set your own categories and own searches on things. It's very, very interesting. But for a brand marketer, you can start looking at this, and this is an engine that you can put underneath of your own system, your own marketing. And if you were, let's say, a pharmaceutical company, and you wanted to do something on diabetics, you could make this whole application about news and information around diabetics. And it exists today. It's very simple to use. You don't need to go invent any of these things. Hundreds of thousands of apps being developed. You can certainly develop your own, but there are also ones that exist and can be adapted. The second thing I want to show you about this technology underneath of it is really exciting. And in this case, we use the example of Lady Gaga. How many of you know Lady Gaga? Everybody does. Good. So you'll understand the scale of this when I talk about this. So if you search for Lady Gaga on here, and if you don't know, Lady Gaga's, the women and people who dress like Lady Gaga are called little monsters, right? How many of you are little monsters? Nobody's going to raise their hand, right? So if you're a little monster and you search this, you get back over 10,000 Twitters about Lady Gaga. And little monsters, very specifically. And what people can't do today is you can't retweet more than one tweet, right? Nobody, has anybody here ever tweeted more than one tweet, retweeted? Nobody, right? You can't. We can, with this technology, retweet 10,000 tweets at one time. That means a tremendous amount for all the advertisers in this room. Because when people are talking about your brand, or you have a new promotion, you can now leverage that in large scale. We like scale, don't we? That's how we should be using social media and scale. So in this case, we collect all the 10,000 Twitters. We put them in there. Lady Gaga herself takes that and Twitters and says, come see my 10,000 little monsters. We have a URL set up. immediately. It could be branded any way we want. In this case, it just goes to SkyGrid as an example. I love you all. Now what happens? That goes down to all those 10,000 little monsters. What do they do when they click that little link? They go to a page that's automatically created content of the 10,000 monsters, all the tweets about them, a place for advertising on the right-hand side and marketing we can use. And each of those little monsters now have an application here that tells them, Lady Gaga just mentioned you. Now the great thing about Twitter is we not only know about those 10,000, but we know all about the people following those 10,000. So all of them just got a mention as well, saying, your friend, Scott Sorokin, is a little monster who got mentioned by Lady Gaga. So it becomes viral very, very quickly. This is a very interesting application. This hasn't broken yet, but will break very soon. GroupM is working with SkyGrid to bring that to our client. The next thing you have to think about, and it's very underestimated, is gaming. So I show this image because I think this is what most of us think of gamers as. The reality is they look more like this. Social gaming is enormous. Certainly throughout the world, most of the applications you'll find in smartphones and on technologies is social gaming. And we're under-leveraging that as marketers. The engagement factors are huge. We have many, many case studies of how gaming is playing a role, providing huge value. Even some of the social media tools like Foursquare, Gawala, and things like that are themselves a sort of games, collecting badges, collecting form badges, things like that. We're all part of gaming. But social media and gaming is very, very big. Certainly, how many of you have been irritated by Farmville? I bet a lot of you play Farmville, don't you? Quite fun. But gaming is really big. It's obviously one of the biggest industries in the world. Marketers are just awakening to the fact of how to leverage it going forward. And as I said, thinking about location aware, understanding where your consumer is the best we can do. Because your ability to engage based on that is everything. It really gives us an understanding of time and place. And there's a term called SPIE, space and time. Putting together space and time for a marketer is nirvana, because now we know the consumer, where they are, how close they are to us, and if they're in the location of them being able to buy our products or services, and then the mindset. And that's really, really important. Facebook just recently added places. Certainly it's nowhere near anybody thinks it should be, but it's quite powerful now that you can be location aware on Facebook. It was really interesting for me to watch break. When I first went into these places, I was one of the first people on. There was nobody else that had posted anything. And within an hour, there were hundreds, if not thousands, of people that I knew that had started to do it. So it was quick adoption. So this is Foursquare. How many of you are Foursquare? So really quite interesting, especially in North America and in Europe. This is quite moving quite fast. And its ability to obviously check in places. And we like this a lot. In this case, this is an example from Gap, where they were able to give 25% off for anybody who checked into the Gap. This was an example that was supposed to go on for one day, and they extended it for a week. It was so successful. Very, very interesting. This just last night, because I checked in at the hotel I'm at, immediately knew I was doing it, found out I was there, sent me a note saying, have you heard of Top Guest? Check in at Intercontinental Hotel and you'll get points for staying at the hotel. So it's looking and searching and it's being really smart about it. It's using my location to encourage me to do something I normally wouldn't do. And then the last thing to show you is around Radio Shack, which is another client of GroupM. And this is start talking about the value of these things. Radio Shack sells electronic ears and devices and all sorts of things, very big and mobile in the United States. They did a check-in where if you just checked in, you got 10% off. And if you were a mayor of a particular store location, you got 50% off. They had a whole bunch of really interesting things. They sold, in a matter of 7 days, $250,000 worth of product than they would before. The average ticket price, this is the most interesting, 3 times the average ticket price. So the people who were checking in and coming in were buying 3 times the amount that just normal customers did. We're seeing a huge value of loyalty and redemption. The other thing that we need to think about is cost time and place. And I touched on this a minute ago, but does any of you have Kindles in this room? So what's really interesting about Amazon Kindle and the capability of Kindle is the ability to sync across every device possible. We're seeing this now for lots of applications. People are thinking about that my applications, my content has to be ubiquitous, whether I'm looking at an Android or looking on a BlackBerry or looking at that on an iPhone or an iPad. We have to make our content transferable across everything. That's going to be really key. And it's going to make our job really difficult. We've actually lived for the last 10 years, believe it or not, it doesn't seem that way on the internet, in a very simple world of the internet. It wasn't splintered, but now it's very splintered. With Android, with iPhone, with iAds, with BlackBerry platforms, etc. Marketers now have to decide what platform they're building on to build on all of them. We're back to a walled garden, and it's very, very expensive. This is an example out of China, and I quite like this because it does something that reminds me that you have to connect the physical world with the digital world. And in this case, this is Cornetto ice cream out of China. And underneath of those round circles, those are the foil tops of the ice cream, were printed short codes. And the short codes open to you ultimate value and opportunity and songs, downloads, and all sorts of things. These were so valuable, these were sold for quite a high value on eBay. People collected hundreds of thousands of these things, shipping them as really with massive, massive quantities. Don't forget about the physical world connected with the digital world. Too often we're developing in silos. We really know that consumers live in all these worlds, right? We all do. We come in and out. And we have tremendous opportunity using the physical world to leverage the digital world quite quickly. This is one of my favorite case studies, which is about thinking ahead. The social media world, the digital world is changing the way that we're going to market and how we're planning for marketing. This is a case that sort of became the standard report. And in this case, they were launching a product, and they gave away 100 people a year before they launched the product. Now, you have to believe pretty strongly about that, I guess, about your product, but I think many of the manufacturers probably feel pretty strongly about the product that they deliver. And in this case, they gave out these 100 cards. They asked them to Twitter, they asked them to videotape it, to have dialogue, do all the stuff. And they did this for a long time. Have an accident, get arrested, do whatever you needed to do, go on a date. If there was a problem with the car, talk about it. And they really leveraged this over time. And they had something, you see the stats here, like almost 5 million views on YouTube. They had 600,000 Flickr views, 11 million impressions. Huge amount of value created before they spent a single dollar, a single paid media dollar, nothing. 38% awareness was generated by doing this before they spent any money at all. Really interesting was the conversion of reservations and sales was 10 times higher than their traditional